Dear friends, I'm ending my official visit to Tunisia at the invitation of the government, which I would like to thank for the facilities provided for my mission. It has been an intense 12 days in which I have traveled from north to south, from east to west of the country, and I have had the opportunity to gather information from the local authorities, from rural communities, from women drawing and transporting water, from activists and human rights defenders, from imprisoned women, from teachers when visiting their schools, and from men and women rescued at sea, fleeing the war in their countries. It was 12 days, but it seemed to me at least 1 month. Well, Tunisia is a Mediterranean country, as you know, with a changing climate and landscape, from green and humid in the north to desert in the south. There are permanent waterways, rivers only in the north, where these rivers were dammed and diverted along uh, more than 400 kilometers of coastline, where most of the population, industry, and tourist developments are concentrated. Paradoxically, the rural communities in the north, whose land was flooded by the reservoirs, have no drinking water in their homes and living in extreme poverty. Beyond the supply strategies developed by the state with these large works under massive subsidies, wells have multiplied throughout the country, not only to supply water to communities, towns, and cities, but also and mainly to extend irrigation and further exploitation and treatment of phosphates in the south. In total, there are an estimated 140,000 wells in renewable aquifers and also some 6,000 in the deep aquifer of non-renewable fossil water in arid desert territories in the south. But the most concerning and serious is that 60% of these wells are illegal. And this leads to the unsustainable overexploitation of the available water in Tunisia. In fact, the use of water is about 120% of the available and renewable water today, which, by the way, will be drastically reduced with climate change, as in the rest of the Mediterranean area. On the other hand, pumping for irrigation of large agribusiness for sport and those used for washing and treatment of phosphates are de facto prioritized over drinking water supplies, generating water cuts, and contamination processes on drinking water, especially in rural communities. But in my opinion, the origin of most of the drinking water contamination processes lies in the obsolescence of and poor state of the distribution networks, the pipelines, in which it is estimated that on average there are losses of around nearly 40% of the water. This leads to more and more frequent and longer water cuts with massive contaminant intrusions that breaks the supportability, drinkability of a large part of the water supplies. Thus, although enormous efforts have been made to bring household water supply networks to 98% of the population, only 57% of this population finally has access to properly drinking water, mostly in cities, of course. The other major challenge, as in other countries, is sanitation. Only the cities have sewage networks, and not even all neighborhoods are connected to the network. Rural areas are neglected, and each family builds its own cesspit or septic tank with no guarantees, supervision, or maintenance, resulting in fecal contamination of aquifers that ends up in the community's water supply. I was impressed by the woman drawing water by hand from a well, even though it was contaminated, and then dragging heavy carts and wheelbarrows for household hygiene, because drinking water had to be bought from vendors. It was struck. I was struck by the indignation of some young people of another community whose water supply has been cut off for 7 years due to the poor state of the pipes and lack of pressure, while a few kilometers away, millions of cubic meters are supplied to wash the phosphates that are extracted. In the shelter of the UN shelter near to Lebanon border for refugees, I was moved to tears by the testimony of Said, a young person who took a year to get Tunisia from Guinea, crossing the desert and falling ill many occasions because of the water he was drinking. He had to drink. And he still continued to dream of reaching Europe. I don't know how. He doesn't know how. Nevertheless, I have confidence in Tunisia as a country. Tunisia has really strong public institutions, ample technological capabilities, and a well-educated youth in which women play and will play a key role for the future and the present. I have confidence in the democratic vitality of a people who raised an unprecedented wave of hope with the Jasmine Revolution, and who, although they are living through difficult times, will undoubtedly know how to react and move forward.